Since my portrait doesn't have ears, I'm using my friend Tron's portrait here. So we're going to start off with creating a new layer. He's using an older version of Illustrator here. So same thing, we're going to use and create ears on a separate layer. We're going to zoom super close in, and we're going to utilize our pen tool and Control Y to see an outline. And I would start off by making like the base of the ears, just an overall larger shape with nice smooth lines and not too many points so your ear is nice and smooth. I'm not worried about the inside because it's going to go behind the head. That's what I'm going to do right here. Just drag it underneath the face layer. And now what I want to build is all the shadows inside the ear, just because there's quite a bit, and without it, it looks super flat. So I'm going to draw some of these little shadows that form naturally in the canals of our ear and make them the same color of like a shadow, you know, slightly darker. I'm using that K value again. Just get a little darker than everything else on his skin tone. And repeating this for the rest of the ear. I just drew a whole bunch more shapes here, and I just made them the same color in different shades of his skin tone. That added a lot of depth and dimension to his ear, so it didn't look super flat, which I highly recommend for you if your ears are visible in your portrait. If your portrait contains long hair, now this is where my portrait comes in handy. I have quite a bit of hair in this photograph sticking out. It's not pulled back. So I would recommend breaking up the hair into different layers depending on where it's located. So I'm putting hair behind my face and then hair in front because there is some hair covering my face. Okay, I'm going to Control Y. I'm zooming super close and I'm starting to build like the outside of the hair, you know, just a larger shape. It's going to look funny at first because hair has strands, curly, straight, whatever the case may be. It does help to build like the larger shapes of your hair, like the overall where your hair is kind of taking up space, and then go back and kind of create the types of strands depending your hair texture. If you have very curly hair, you're going to create like ringlets, and same as the eyelashes, I would recommend kind of separating them, making a few versions of ringlets for hair, and then copying, pasting them, and you know, rotating them so that it looks like different strands of hair. So you see I'm just speeding up this part. I have pen tooled the overall shape of my hair, but I haven't gotten all the strands. I just kind of got the basics. Now there's part of my hair that's in front of my face, so I'm just going to go to the hair that's like showing, and then I'll make a separate layer for the other part. Okay, so you see the two shapes. Now obviously it doesn't look really great because it's not giving me the dimension of my hair. Now I'm going to draw another layer or create another layer. And in this layer, that's the hair that's covering my eyes. So I'm going to separate it because there's some that's in front of my head and some behind. And I'm going to do the same thing. I've spent quite a bit of time adding some highlights because I had different colors in my hair. I recommend, even if you don't, to add different shades of brown, black, whatever color your hair is, just to add some dimension. And it just made it look a little bit more full and a little bit more like strands. So you saw all the little extra pieces I've created. They're separate than the big blobs of hair I created in the beginning. Okay, now it does take a lot of time. I think the hair is the thing we're going to have to spend the most time on, no matter how much hair you have, unless you're wearing it in a hood or a hat. Now, if you have short hair, we went back to Mr. Tron, and he's showing here like his technique. So he did the same thing. He did hair behind and hair in front. So the hair behind, he just gave the overall shape, and some of his hair is kind of covering his head. So he made another layer on top, hair in front, to kind of get the strands of hair that might be covering his forehead. So they're two separate shapes, just like mine, but obviously because his hair is shorter, he has less to create. And his hair is straight, so he didn't have as much curls or like texture to add to his hair. He just made straight lines. Okay, he spent quite a bit of time on this as well. So I'm going to show you his process here. You can see that he's adding quite a bit of pencil marks, trying to get those little like edges, and he made it look more cartoony, obviously not as natural. I think that was a good technique because it would be really hard to get every strand of hair, and that's not what I expect of you. Try to get some strands to add some dimension to your artwork. So he has a few little indentations to show strands of hair in between the larger gaps. And he wasn't worried about it overlapping his head at that part because that part is behind his face. Now when he went to the top of the hair and he did hair front, that's when he was worried about the hair that was covering his face. And he did something very similar where he kind of generalized the area. He didn't make every strand of hair, but he put a few so it looked like he had actual hair as opposed to like just a straight blob on top of his head.